To me, there's no such thing as full contact sparring. There's either sparring with or without control, and then there's fighting, real fighting. Now, real fighting is the real violence. That's when potentially anything could happen. There's a possibility of death. That's when the law comes into play, the police. There'll be multiple offenders, there could be weapons, and all sorts of things. That's real fighting. Now, sparring is in preparation for real fighting. It's training for real fighting. Now, people that say the term full contact sparring, to me, that term simply does not make sense. They call full contact sparring such as people putting gloves on and say like kickboxing, Thai boxing, even the cage fighting. They put gloves on, they put mouth guards on, and they pretty much hit as hard as they can with those gloves on, with the mouth guard on, with the cup on, or whatever. And then they have rules on certain areas that they can and can't hit. To me, that's not full contact. I mean, if you're putting on protection, already that protection prevents it from being full contact. Okay? Like, if you don't have any protection and you just hit the person as hard as you can, then that's full contact. But once you put the protection on, that's already a control device to control the contact that is exerted. So that no longer becomes full contact. So people that call, real full contact is real fighting. When there's no protection devices. It's just whatever it is goes. Whatever the situation. There's, whatever equipment you have at that moment, and you just protect yourself, and then that's full contact. That's basically just real fighting. But when you talk about full contact sparring, they're trying to make it into real fighting, but it's still not real fighting. All of it is just sparring. So everything that we see on television as far as the commercialized fighting, boxing, kickboxing, Thai boxing, cage fighting, it's all just sparring. Now, the degree of control is regulated by the equipment that is used. Boxing has bigger gloves, like more heavier gloves, more ounces. So that's more protection, more control. And then you got cage fighting, which has smaller gloves, which is less control. Alright, so they're trying to get closer and closer to the real fighting, but it's still not real fighting. Alright, the gloves make a significant difference upon what type of damage will be the result of a very powerful hit. Okay, so fighting is nothing new. Fighting has been around since man has been around. Fighting has been around since animals has been around. Animals has been fighting since they've been existent. So it's no different for the human being. Fighting has always been here. It's nothing new at all. Okay, so when you have something real like fighting, to me, I can compare it to like real sex. Before the invention of contraceptives, there's just sex. There's always the possibility of pregnancy. There's always the possibility of disease. Alright? That's real sex. And then there's real fighting. There's always the possibility of death. Alright? And it's spontaneous. A lot of times you don't know when you're going to fight. It may just happen. So then there's real fighting. And then there's such thing as the sparring. Now, it becomes either more controlled, like something like boxing, or less controlled, something like cage fighting. But it's still not fighting, not real fighting. To me, it's cage fighting to me is comparable to like having sex with a condom. It's still not real sex. You're still protecting yourself from potentially getting a woman pregnant, protecting yourself from diseases. It may seem like real sex, but it's still not real sex without any barriers at all. So real fighting is something very different than controlled sparring or uncontrolled sparring. Now, when you spar, it is in preparation for real fighting. So, if you are preparing for real fighting, the wise way to prepare will be to prepare in a safe and healthy way. When you are training in unsafe and unhealthy ways, i.e., uncontrolled sparring, it is very unwise to train that way. So something like the cage fighting is very unwise to train for real fighting when you are going to allow your body to take significant damage based on that training. Then that training no longer helps you preserve your health and to survive, but it actually hinders your survival. It hinders your health. So you have some of these cage fighters where if you Google this information, you will find it, where they die shortly after the fight, or they even die during the fight, or many of them end up in the hospital. Many broken bones, many injuries. So this is just, all it is uncontrolled sparring. It is unwise sparring, ignorant sparring. Then there is controlled sparring, a safe way to spar, to train for real fighting. Now you'll see practitioners of Wing Chun, they spar in a safe way. They will hold their attacks back, maybe an inch before contact, in order to prevent injury to their sparring partner. But yet they still receive the benefit of the training in preparation for real fighting. Now there is sparring with protective equipment in a safe way, where they will hit, but maybe they will not hit harder than their sparring partner can handle. They will hit just enough in order to get a reaction from their sparring partner, or in order to teach their sparring partner to move in a way so that they do not get hit again later on. So there is always a healthy way to spar and an unhealthy way. Competition fighting is an unhealthy way to spar, because now you are not just sparring in order to prepare for real fight, but you are sparring in order to entertain others, in order to make others more excited to watch you. Then it becomes unsafe.